present to you Ira Cohen.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to say I'm still alive. Hey, come on. Hey, let's Then, just for the fun of it, and because I can't get it out of my mind, there's a great American bohemian character. Is this in the right distance from the microphone? Okay. His name was Joe Gould. He was known as Professor Seagull. He used to haunt the West Village through the 20s, the 30s, 40s, whatever. Usually picking up free wine. He would have been here tonight. If he would be in the neighborhood, he would get cigarette butts, and he would never go to a restaurant without drinking all the ketchup in any bottle, because he never knew when he would get his next meal. So he would go to certain poetry clubs, and when they were reading poetry, he would come for the free wine. And then there's one poem he read one night. He was thrown out because they said he's not serious like the rest of us. But the poem was printed, and it's actually one of the best poems ever written in the English language or in the American language during the century. So I want to quote you that poem just to start off. It goes like this. It was a spiritual night, and everybody was supposed to read spiritual or religious poetry. So this poem was called My Religion. And then he read his poem saying, "In the winter, I am a Buddhist. In the summer, I am a nudist." Also, on the political front from America, I had a sudden illumination. I don't only write poems, somehow jokes come to me and all kinds of other clever ideas. But I was thinking about the energy crisis you may have heard of in America. You know, that George Bush is trying to make some plan and trying to get more money out of California because the people didn't vote for him there, and making some trouble. So I sent an open letter to George Bush saying, if you want to solve the energy crisis, turn off the electric chair in Texas. Now, you know that I was here in Ruigoord when you opened up this store. I'm kidding, calling it a store, you know. It's like a store in the sense that the king of the universe has a store where he keeps all the magic things. So I'm going to read first a special poem called Visvam, or Waiting for Marina. My heart is a hollow bamboo. He speaks of seeking you in the light, a glance of starlight in the light of day, perhaps, or your mouth, which confers darkness lit by gold. This smoky shade, this knowledge of mirage, this all in all, myself alone in the company of true believers. I feel this is a place where I can say that, not that I want to seem that I'm so alone, but in the end we're all alone, aren't we? And this is certainly a place of true believers. Okay, now I'm going to read you a poem from my good friend Gregorio Nunzio Corso, who died last year. And the name of the poem is The Day They Robbed the Bank of England. Now, the first thing in this poem, it says, my karma ran over my dogma. Gregory Corso's last words to me, January 12th, 2001 in Minneapolis. Well, of course, Gregory would often say things, and then I'd say, that's a great line. Is that yours? Did you just make that up? He'd say, yeah, of course, man. And then I would find out later that it was a bumper sticker that they were selling in California. But because Gregory gave that to me as a gift, he couldn't get out of bed and find something, although he asked his daughter, can you get some old tattered thing that we don't need anymore and give it to Ira as a present? I said, don't bother, Gregory, it's okay. Just emptying your piss bag for 2 weeks is enough for me as a present. I mean, And then he said, okay, I'll give you something. I'm going to give you a line. You can use it in any way you want. Well, when I found out it was a bumper sticker, I made sure that I would use it, and these are his last words. I almost convinced someone to put those lines on a tablet, which is now in Rome, where his ashes are buried next to Mr. Shelley and Mr. Keats. So my karma ran over my dogma. A golden waffle for Gregory. It's 6 a.m. and the bell rings in my room. Gregory wants to be put on the commode. That's like a toilet, you know, with wheels. He sits puffing a cigarette like a Roman senator, constipated because of the morphine, the Dilaudid, the leaking epidural, still planning the African campaign or trying to resolve the Ptolemy dilemma. He remembers all those girls, the little lies which gained him entrance. Nobody ever sucked my cock before. And the simplest tactic opened the gate of poetry. Watching great boxing matches on TV of our common past, we speak of Canzoneri, the bolo punch of Kid Gavilan, Willie Pep's finesse, how Marciano finished Roland Lastarza. We compare notes on all the great character actors, a century of watching movies, Conrad Veidt and Sabu in The Thief of Baghdad, Gene Tierney in Shanghai Gesture. We talk about Angus and Xena. He gives me Gustav Mahler. I give him the Himalayas. It's all about proximity, that reach which exceeds its grasp, that bell which rings in the night. He spits in his hand, holds it up, and calls it, come. These days dwindling, this flight I take tonight. I touch his head, and he thinks of the Ganga. I bring him a blue rubber glove and turn him over to Robert Morley. Adieu, baby, I gotta go. The car's coming up the hill, and there's always room for one more. Sherry, his beautiful daughter, who we met for the first time when she was 30 from a one-night stand. He couldn't believe all those years afterwards, another 20 years almost, that was his daughter, but he humored her. And in the end, as a registered nurse, she came to almost give him an extra year of life by her great care and concerns, and she was unbelievable. So Sherry's coda is the end of this. Valiant to the end, you died, squeezing the hand of her who loved you most. As far as the eye can see, still she stays close to thee. I mean, Gregory may never have been here in Ruigoord, that I don't know, but he was certainly in Amsterdam. And he was at the P79 festival, I think, and, you know, a lot of other places here in Holland. Any place you could score smack, he certainly was nearby. This poem was written in India. Benares poem. On her back she sweeps the central concourse of Kashi, covered in ashes and pushing her plate in a rattle of zinc. She comes up from the Ganga. Her legs are dead dogs pulled by a string, crooked and tortuous, clothed in foam. She is a drunken wave, moaning mantras of rivers as she rolls back the shadows of weddings and pilgrims, and erases the names of the founders of the city. Absolving the rickshaws, with one hand she touches the sky. Oh, wingless stump, freak fated to crawl the earth upside down, like God's tongue, you lick the offal from the ground. From the Moroccan Journal, 1987. I lived in Tangier for some years. In fact, the first time I came here to Amsterdam, I was wearing a Moroccan silham. I think I was the first gastarbeiter from North Africa in this country. Actually, Simon caught it in a photograph and put it in his book, Liefde. From the Moroccan Journal, 1987. My heart feels like an uncut diamond. Though it is still the same, it is not the same. Someone speaks of a bridge to be built from Tangier to Algeciras, Or is it Gibraltar? Yes, and then a highway to the stars, or more likely an elevator to the underworld, says yellow turban to white jalaba as the exhaust fumes from the bus engulf them, leaving behind not even a single shadow. Is that Mel Clay in a white jacket turning the corner? No, it is a figment of my imagination, escaped from the asylum. Is that Ian Somerville walking backwards up the street as if pulled by a giant magnet? No, that is William Burroughs making electricity from dead cats. Wow. Jesus, I know William was a very strong guy, but I didn't think you'd mind that, William. I mean, it's just a joke. I know you loved cats. You wouldn't do that. Is that Tatiana glistening on Maxiton? No, it is the sun dancing in the sugar bowl. Is that Mark Schleifer wavering on the cliff edge? No, it is a promontory in the wind of time about to fall into the sea. Is that Beethoven's Ninth Symphony being played up the street? No, it is the sound of the bread wagons rumbling over cobblestones. Is that George Andrews with two girls in hand looking for bread? No, it is an unidentified flying object about to land. Is that one-eyed Mose hanging by his heels? No, that is the hanged man inventing the tarot. Are the dead really so fascinated by lovemaking? Yes, that is how they travel. Is that Irving in short pants looking for trouble? No, that's me, unable to stop thinking. Is that Kenneth Halliwell looking for Joe Orton? Is that Jane Bowles looking for Sharifa? Rosalind looking for her baby? Alfred searching for his lost hair? Is that the wig of it all? The patched robe of my brain? The wind talking to itself? Brian is dead and Yakubi is dead, and I am a not unhappy ghost, remembering everything. The warp and woof of memories, her yellow slip, her shaved cunt, her idiot child. Dream Shuttle makes me exist everywhere at once. The blind beggars led by children keep coming. They all have many houses in the Casbah, chant the unbelievers, sucking on sugar. Words keep coming back like bezezel for tits, Lichine for oranges, like Mina, like Fatima, like Dris Barada dropping his trousers for an injection in the middle of his shop. The trunk is full of old sepia postcards, bare-breasted girls, smoking hookahs, etc. We speak of the Cataplana, the mist which obscures even the cielo. You cannot even see the hand in front of your face. We embrace. He says he thought of me only yesterday. He says there are always 9 such men who look like us in the world, and that we are the 10th. We speak of the gold fillets in the sky over Mulay Absalom. The garbage men in rubber boots go through the Saco, pushing wheeled drums of collected garbage. An unveiled woman wobbles out of a taxi and heads home before sunrise. Paul couldn't believe there was a Karma Street, but I will never forget it. And Billy Batman, who made the best hash in the world, he dropped a loaded pistol in Kabul, shot himself in the balls, took some heroin, and lay down to die. Now I must get up from my table at the all-night Café Central. No more Dr. Nadal. No more window with red crosses and red crescents. The water thrown from buckets runs across the cafe floors and over the sidewalks, and I drop a dirham into the hand of a blind beggar singing in the dark on the American stairs. From Aeneas Nins, A Spy in the House of Love. The women wear fireflies in their hair, but the fireflies stop shining when they go to sleep. So now and then, the women had to rub the fireflies to keep them awake. spent some lovely time with Kazuko Shiraishi, one of the great poets, woman poet actually, but one of the great poets of modern Japan. So this is the poem I wrote. Actually, I wrote the poem before I even went. I couldn't sleep all night, and then I wrote this poem before I went there. It all started with Kazuko saying, "I want to invite you to my birdhouse." Then I discovered that stamp with her picture on it, the pink leadbeater cockatoo with 7-pointed white crest, sharp little beak, red-rimmed eyes, and white wings, sitting in a tree in Okusiambino. I knew that I was the brown owl from Cape Verde, doomed to be up all night, longing for live meat like the wounded owl I once force-fed every day in Kathmandu. Then I couldn't get the birds out of my head. I remembered how writing evolved from the flight of cranes, the calligraphical formations, the bird tracks in the sand, Palamedes and Valmiki. Then Attar's colloquy of the birds started by confounding me. I too wanted to fly into the center of the sun. Then there was the magical kingfisher of my childhood, the crow who flew with burning wick in its beak in order to describe Dharma, that Pondicherry bird of South India calling all night, "I've got a fever, I've got a fever." The fever bird, we called it. I remembered the feather floating to the ground, the brilliant plumage, Quetzalcoatl, your triple-eyed peacock feather, given to an emperor of China by the king of Nepal. This is not a poem, but a pastiche of swallows and toucans, a hymn to flight, a tenderness for pigeons, your woodpecker which lets spirits escape from trees, big birds which can't fly, to the face hidden beneath every wing, to the falcon's lure, to the blinded birds, lyre birds, birds which are good to eat, parrots and magpies, the whip or will, the egg of sleep. I want to invite you to my birdhouse, you said. Okay, a New York poem. The day after Jerome Robbins died, I sit on a bench on a Broadway island between lanes of bleeping traffic, thinking of the significance of O.J.'s mansion razed to the ground. An old black lady with a cane, wearing an elegant straw hat, makes it across the street to catch the number 60 bus, the one I love to take for 75 cents, which goes all the way to LaGuardia Airport. I read in the paper that an old friend, Peter Dennison, and his son, Morgan, 11 years old, were killed crossing the street by an empty bus. They were holding hands. In my own heart, love dies a little and urges me to keep jaywalking if such steadfastness could so tempt blind fate. Talking to Andy on the telephone, I say, if you really love me, why would you want to go to the Sahara, where we could be buried in all that sand? The starlight, you say, but I'd rather go to the beach and be touched by blue water. I'm thinking Atlantis, and she says, Madagascar. Definitely at the top of my dream list. You know, Madagascar is considered to be ancient Lemuria, and there are still lemurs singing in the trees. We agree to go there. We will record the lemurs, their love calls, and all the rest of their chatter, add theremins, and make a CD. I'd love to sample Lemuria before the clock runs out. I'm going to eat the millennium, fill my head with African gold, look at tectonic maps of Venus, check out the hotspots, clean the mirror, say hello to another night sleeping on sharp corners. I'll turn the pages of the giraffe book with my eyes closed and wear the giraffe hat for the big audition when the next dawn finally arrives. There goes sugar walking around, but nothing is free except you and me. You have to be crazy to expect any more. Time is what keeps the light from reaching us. One more? I have 3 more, so you want me to make a choice? Oh, I can read 2 more. 3 more is okay? Okay. These are the three killer poems of the night. So, Song to Nothing. And surely we will die without memory, coming to cold in the shadow of space. And if it isn't too late for the star to love you, spraying the sky with whispers, attuned to galaxies, hungry for flame. And if the tongue of night sings of albino winos till the morning light shafts the doorway, then surely we will die tonight, faceless at the white gate, sharing the smoke with ancient shapes in future garb. And you stand somewhere there on the other side, feeding on the pain of dreamlessness, where from the misty morning of white shadows and the unresisting need to destroy. Samael, Samael, I beg it may be forgiven, that they may be driven out of the black into the white. Only let the dazzle remain for gamblers to surprise, the strategic diamond, the throne of compressed bone in the unsure dark, where only light can forgive and your mind is signed. Embers of echoes in the vastness disguise the yearning to burn blind eyes in arrogant displays of feeling. Running wild, these beasts will feast on the newborn kind, for surely we will die tonight unless we learn to ignore what the others live for on the other side of morning. And the skin of nothing left by the same summer masks the faceless wanderer. Oh, let it happen, this weird to discover the shape of beauty in everything extreme. For surely we will die tonight, whether we will or whether we dream. Oh, Samael, forgive the dreamer, forgive the dream. The song of nothing is your lullaby. Okay, this is for all the contemporary cyber kids. Are there any here? Maybe. No cyber kiddies in the TAZ? Optical time delay, or you can't step into the same river once, baby. How fast can you download your free flight mirrors, fasten your seatbelt, and enter the world of darkness forever? Plasma solution can replace your blood on demand while you swim upstream to nowhere or sew your shadow back on like Peter Pan. You can cross any border without fear just by wearing a motion tracker bodysuit and a simulated face. Feverishly tweaking your imagination allows you to enjoy the restrictions of obsolete governments. Cybersex on demand. Don't be a crash test dummy or a Teflon widow. Stay a nomad and keep traveling, with or without a surfboard. If a bookmark is a bullet, then God can surely be an imperfection. There is no simple causal chain. Everything is simultaneously true. Living with flux is a permanent state. Stay on the threshold. Get an impersonal computer. Bathe in the shimmer of liminal possibilities. Decenter your vision and cross the border of human nature. Your mind is a diagram. Your heart can swivel in any direction. But if you can't shake your ass, you'll never make it to the other side. The last user is already with us. The playing field has shifted beyond your wildest dreams. There are no rules in a knife fight. Okay, now I'm going to finish with this special text. For a number of reasons, I thought of excluding it, and then I would be hopping down already. But because of this incredible story I heard today, that the king and queen of Nepal were shot by their son, along with another some half dozen to 10 family members, I couldn't feel but take that in a very special way, because in fact the day that King Virendra Vikram Shah was crowned king of Nepal, I had to leave Kathmandu for that week because they wouldn't allow two kings in the country at the same time. So I'm always, looking at him as some kind of, as if I'm looking in some kind of distorted mirror. And whatever happened that made this story occur, You know, it took going to Harvard, having a brother carrying diplomatic pouches of heroin, probably being rather uptight in a certain way so that the children were never properly educated to the spirituality, which in its true sense, they could never show any more than, you know, the presidents of the United States on their knees, you know, for a Christmas service would never, you know, really reach either. So I want to read this because this is somehow a recollection of all my fondest memories of Kathmandu. I wrote it when I lived here in Amsterdam, and it was first published in that wonderful English magazine, which many of the poets I'm here with tonight also contributed to, especially speaking of Simon and Hans Plump and other Dutch writers, which was called Ins and Outs, edited by Mr. Eddie Woods. So this piece is called Kathmandu Dream Piece. It was actually written because the request was to try to get something that would help the patron of this magazine, a man named Sala, who worked for a travel agency, maybe get people to buy tickets. So this was like a some kind of an advertisement, you know, as if like, come to Kathmandu, you know, Kathmandu Dream Piece. Trying to describe Kathmandu is like making a cross-section of sky and clouds, indefinable as the mysterious blue which hovers above our ancient memories, ever-changing as the cloud forms advancing over the valley. Dreams of dragon claws dissolving like sugar in the oracular waters of oriental wisdom, only to reform in great mushrooms of future holocaust. Endless cycles of death and rebirth figure everywhere in the storied pagodas, statues of gods encrusted with orange puja powder, or brass figures shining like mirrors from the million hands which do daily homage to the cosmic spirit. There where the common greeting is namaste, I bow down to the God which is in you, where the dawn comes up over the peaks of crystal and ice, hastened by the sound of bells ringing everywhere. And the great turning wheels of the Tibetans keep constant reign over the balance of an errant planet where even the most humble carrier in rags walking over the icy moraines demonstrates that true dignity is born of poverty and can never die under an unlittered sky. I remember ripped prayer flags flying in the mountain wind, and suddenly there was snow. I remember nights full of candles burning on every doorstep and roof ledge, and then the stones, every one of which has its own history, nor is there any flower without its place in the garland of giving. If you spend any time in Kathmandu, you will see a man wearing a brown overcoat, whatever the season, whose fingers are covered with cheap glittering rings, and who carries a rolled up newspaper, out of which he will give you a picture of Krishna playing the flute, or Durga with a necklace of human skulls riding resplendently on a lion. Or it may be Shiva, Lord of Beasts, sitting in meditation on a tiger skin, not unlike the sadhus who come to worship at the shrines of Pashupatinath as part of their never-ending pilgrimage. On the back of the picture, he has written painstakingly in English his celebration of the day in honor of the god. This will be the global emperor, who, when he knew I was leaving for Europe, prepared letters for the political leaders of the West, advising them that defense of globe is our main concern. He will be endlessly on his way to the temple, where he will present a fruit to Lord Narayan, hoping that one day the fruit will dissolve there without being taken by monkey or hungry human. For it is only when the untouched fruit dissolves completely that the global emperor will consider that true benefit may accrue to the human race. Then it may be said that the God himself has taken it. I remember I was just walking down the road and across the rice fields where people were working with hoes and pickaxes, all women in a row. The old men together could barely push their load over the bridge, and all the others carrying loads of vegetables or refrigerators on their backs. I was past the road and on top of the hill, and the clouds, they were carrying the sky, and we were dreaming of thunder. I remember a detail of melting snow, and at the jeweled edges of brittle ice, A brown faded flower shines golden in the sunlight at the top of a giant profile like a broken nose cresting the horizon. And then the young Nawari girl was married to a tree. I remember pretending to sleep while outside a great slaughter was taking place. A hecatomb of water buffaloes killed by the king's men, and the king's palms dipped in the blood of sacrifice printed on a white cloth. I remember being assaulted by hostile radios, hysterical laughter, and a babble of foreign tongues. I remembered the blood in the streets awaiting the last propitious rains, and then the sky full of kites repenting of such ill-begotten caresses, and I implore the secret heart's rhetoric to spray this night with its golden sheen. And the memory of parchment unrolled, and the sound of muffled drums calling us to unspeakable acts there on the shores of some fuming river, solitary and unknown, while pretending to fall asleep over the maps of future possibilities. Imagine all this perfumed with urine, and then another busload of tourists appears as if dropped from the sky, with cameras trained on each other as they stand in the marketplace, afraid of the cows and what is hidden within. For them it is only a stopover, a moment of reality between closing walls of industrial fantasy. But for the one who stays long enough to know the God within, for the one who learns to bow, if only once, for that one, the dream will never die. Thank you. A little